Next presentation this evening is a taxi cab update, and I'd like to recognize Chief Ralph Evangelos, Wilmington Police Department. Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bar closing, crowds downtown, and taxi cabs. Historically, during Halloween night, New Year's Eve, and 4th of July downtown, we experienced large bar closing crowds that exceed the availability of cabs in the area. This lack of cabs usually results in additional disturbances and other issues created from the crowds waiting for taxi cabs to get down and to get them. We held a meeting on Tuesday, January 17th, with the major taxi cab permit holders in the city, which represents about 66% of the 155 permitted cabs within the city. The companies were Kate's, Let's, Port City, and Yellow Cab. In an effort to try to reduce this wait time and help move these crowds out, that can be up to 8,000 to 10,000 people on a New Year's Eve or Halloween night. We had some pretty good discussions, and they've agreed to, starting immediately on these nights and any other nights during the year that we have excessive crowds, start at 1 in the morning till about 3 in the morning, they will not dispatch any cabs and send all their resources downtown for that 2-hour period to help move this crowd out. So this is a big change from how they have operated in the past, where they were dispatching around the city and around the county during these peak times. Now all of their resources will be sent downtown starting at 1 in the morning, and we think this is worth a try for a year and see what impact it has during these real peak times. Now, these are the 3 days, the 3 evenings that they're going to actually do it, but any other nights during the year, we'll have phone numbers to them that we can call, our watch commanders can call, and ask them to implement this procedure, and they will send all their resources down there for that 2-hour period. They've also agreed, and it's like I said, on other nights. So before I move on to the next issue, do you have any questions in reference to that? Sure.
So what do party goers on New Year's Eve in some other part of town do for safe transportation?
Well, most of those dispatch calls are to residences. Okay, most of the time, for what the cab owners tell me, they will stack and they will wait until there's an available cab.
So in other parts of the city, people could be waiting from 1 to 3 in the morning to get a cab, and I think New Year's Eve is the obvious night that will happen, because there are parties all over town and people driving and people maybe shouldn't be driving, and yet they can't get a cab at all.
Well, the dispatchers will tell them that there's going to be a wait, and they'll give them their best estimate as to how long that wait will be.
Okay, I just wanted to verify what we're doing. I'm not sure I'm happy with that, but I know we need to do something about downtown on those nights.
Well, I think it's worth trying. I think that for that 2-hour period of time, I think it could have an impact on moving the crowds out of the downtown area.
Okay, we have 2 other questions here.
And Chief, I think we've learned in the past that some of the things we have to do by trial and error and see how they work. But also, I noted from what you presented that another third of the cabs are not limited this way. So the other third of the cabs would be available to go anywhere in the city.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're saying?
Oh, maybe you don't have this, but how many additional cabs is that going to put downtown? I mean, obviously you think it's significant, and I guess my concern is what happens, the same concern Ms. Pageant has, not only residential areas, but then we might just be transferring the problem to some of the beach communities and other places where people are using cabs to come back into the city.
Well, it'll be substantial. I mean, I think we could see probably a 50% increase in the amount of cabs, and I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I mean, a couple of the cab owners are here. and they'd be more than happy to chime in on it. But one of the cab companies has been doing this already and found it's been successful. And so the other 3 cab companies have agreed to come on board as a unified force to try to address this problem. That, as we know, that 2-hour period of time is huge.
Mr. Ravenbar.
The cab companies that you mentioned, Chief, are the cab companies that are certified by your department to do business in the city limits or in the central business district.
In the entire city.
In the entire city. But what we don't mention here are the number of other cab companies that aren't certified to operate within the city limits. They can. How does that work? They can bring fares in. They can't pick fares up.
They can't take them out.
Okay. Perhaps there could be something like lifting that ban for those 3 nights, where those folks could pick up some of the slack. Because I agree with Ms. Padgett. You know, if I'm calling in at 2 o'clock and you tell me I'm gonna have to wait, I'm probably gonna keep right on partying. In fact, I'm sure I would. And then may try to drive. It's just an idea. I mean, because there are a lot of cab companies that come before us periodically wanting for us to lift the ban, so to speak, or lessen our standards so they can be certified to work in the city. So that might be a possibility.
I think it's a possibility, but understand that if you'll put other cab companies out of business if you have too many cabs. I mean, you can only sustain so much activity, and then some of these people will lose their jobs, and that's one of the major concerns, because you have 3 nights a year that are problems, and then occasionally during the year. So and that's a council decision to make. I'm merely presenting the facts here to you, and we believe that this is worth trying. You know, for 1 or 2 of these nights. They're coming up here in the next few months, and let's see how it works.
Okay. Mr. Anderson.
Chief, just a quick comment. I mean, I love the idea of being able to call and having your watch captains call. I just feel like you could probably anticipate Memorial Day and Labor Day right there with this, in our tourism. That's our sweet spot, our busy time. I mean, the cab companies may have information that goes against that, but I just would anticipate those 2 holidays as well.
Yeah, and again, we're very flexible, and they're very flexible to make this happen.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
Just 2 other quick issues I'm going to bring forward to you in the near future for some modifications of the code. One of which, and rather than go through the presentation, I'll just tell you about it. Presently, the code says that at 10 years you have to replace your cabs. Okay, the cab companies agreed that needs to stay in place because they get run down pretty bad, and they're 100% in favor of that. But several limo owners have come forward and says, look, limos don't get driven as hard, they don't get driven daily, and that.
Excuse me, sir.
And that. Lost my train of thought. and the limo company is so expensive to replace a limo. Talking to the cab companies, they agree that we should, and we agree that we should. We're going to bring forward to you and make the council make that decision to take the 10-year limit off of limos because they clearly are much more expensive to replace and they're in much better shape. And we do inspect them, and we will continue to inspect them yearly, and we spot inspect them. So we'll bring that forward to you in the near future. And the last item is that a cleanup fee. Presently, when someone has an exchange of bodily fluid or whatever happens in these cabs, it's pretty bad. And it costs them a lot of money to clean these cabs up. Steam cleaning, disinfecting them, takes them out of service. And some cabs have been charging $200 to $300 to have these done. We're recommending, and the cab owners here have recommended, $100, which is a fair price. We've seen the cost of the steam cleaning and whatever. We'll bring that forward to you in the near future. And lastly, the cab owners, will you please stand up? Where are you guys at? Thank you all. I want to appreciate you really working with us in this, and my hat's off to them. So,
okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last presentation this evening is a presentation on the Comprehensive Greenway Plan. I'd like to recognize